Well, good morning, everybody. It's me, Robert Phoenix. I am back after taking a few days off here. It seems like I take a few days off and the world goes to hell in a handbasket. But maybe that's just the way it is. And regardless of whether I'm streaming and or commenting on things, that's just where we are. It is the 28th of December, and I put up a show last night on the other channel, and I'm probably going to take it down because the audio isn't all that great. Uh, but I just wanted to get something kind of on last night so you guys could have some programming in case you were bored or tired of the Nashville bombardment, pun not intended. So we're going to get into some of that today and some other pertinent pertinent bits of information as we try to again untangle and get a clearer headlight picture as to where we are and theoretically where this is going. So let's do a little head count here. There's my man Steve Thor at the door right there, numero uno. What's going on, Steve? Z's in the house, the lovely and talented Jonas. Tina Sherman, hello Tina, good to see you. Gucci the Goats is good to go this morning. Joe Dimitri's here. Mary Greether in the house. Ryan, what's going on, Ryan? Good to see you. 1-0 Dragon 14. Laura D. Tea time with Tizia. How's it going to you? So apparently we're going to have some snow here in Texas this week. It was in the 70s this weekend. So get your tomato plants in. Let's see. Danica Rose, the Rose of Nova Scotia. Here she is today. Shannon Jones. Allison is human. Thank God for that. She's here. Lisa Marie. Good morning, Lisa Marie, our resident Capricorn. Happy birthday, all you Cappy goats. Joe Mama in the house. Hello, Joe. Good witchy. Hello, good witchy. Teresa Blackburn. I was just thinking about you this morning, Teresa. Nice to see you. Let's see. Danny J is here. What's going on, Danny? Ian Barber, CC Jones, Jan Augenstein. Hello, Jan. Let's see. Carolina in the Pines is here. Ashante Edwards. Good morning, Ashante. Ralph Winter. London calling. It is the winter of our discontent, no doubt. Miranda Couch is here. Double V, Frank Bry. Let's see. I love snow. I love snow. Snow, yes. Remember as a kid, I didn't grow up in a place where there was snow, by the way. At least not on a consistent basis. So when there was snow, it was a really big deal. You got that giddy, like, oh God, we're going to throw snowballs and build snowmen and do snow things. I lived in California. Every now and then it would snow. There was one time when I was in high school, we had this really brutal, like 3-day patch. It was super cold, and it did snow. I had a paper route, so I did my paper route in the snow one time. It was kind of intense. T. Jordan, looking forward to talking with you, my man. We'll be doing a little session here soon. Paul Netton, Paul, I got a package coming at you today. It goes out for you and the missus. The mayor's in the house. I see Trump threw Congress a curve by invoking the 1974 Impoundment Control Act, which allows him to redline the spending bill. We'll talk about Trump and spending. I think basically Trump is a cheapskate, but in a good way. We'll talk about that. Let's see. TFT Tinfoil Tiara. Miranda Couch. Let's see what we have here. We got Karen McLaughlin. Laurel Jubin. I'm on the road. Got you guys riding shotgun. I hope we're riding 12 gauge. Leon Luis in the house. Michelle Taylor. Hello, Michelle. Natalie Remington. Speaking of shotgun. Let's see. It is 60 degrees here in Arkansas. No snow. Nancy Hardy. Jazz Freak. Kind of like line item veto, but not exactly. Sort of. Natasha. Hey, Natasha. Good to see you. Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody else? And I miss. I think we're all here. I think we're all here, present, and accounted for. I remembered that snow. I was in the 7th grade. Oh, you remember that snow? Yeah, I was a sophomore in high school, either sophomore or fresh. I was a sophomore. Yeah, it was about a 3 day snow. It was very exciting. And when I first moved to Austin, it snowed. The first couple of years I was in Austin, it snowed, and I thought, wow, it snows a lot in Texas, and it hasn't really done that since then. So it looks like we're going to get some this week. And unfortunately for kids now, there is no snow day because every day is a snow day due to COVID-19. They just get to stay home. The only difference is that they have to do work. So I had a conversation with somebody who attends school in Austin, and here's the plan now for the future. This is the plan for the future of your schools. So wrap your head around this. They're going to abolish physical schools altogether. They're going to go away. Physical schools are going to be the way of the 20th century. It will all be online learning. And guess what? They're going to increase the hours that you're going to be online. It's the equivalent of adding 2 extra days a week of learning. So how I see this is summer vacation will no longer be summer vacation. You'll probably have maybe about a month in the summertime to kind of regroup or do whatever you're going to do because people aren't going to travel now. They're not going to need summer vacation, are they? So the amount of time kids are going to be spending online in these online portals, these hells, is going to be off the charts. So if you have school-age children and you're even in a state like this one, where not every, so the way things are now is that we have states within states within states. So we have the theoretical United States, which is no longer the United States. We are no longer united. We are no longer connected as a union. We're not, because it got decoupled, and it was decoupled on March 13th, Friday the 13th. And all Trump has to do is rescind that order. And guess what we are? We are the United States again, but that's not the case. So we have the theoretical United States, and then in the United States, we have these various states that are doing various things. Some states doing a version of the same thing, only variegated and, basically different stripes of the same thing. And then in those states, and you have counties that are doing certain things. And then within the counties, you have cities that are doing certain things that are different than the things that are being done in other cities or towns within the county. And then even in the town that you're in, there are certain businesses that will be doing certain things differently than other businesses. So this is where we are right now. We are in the great miasma of balkanization, and everything is going according to plan for those who want to disassemble the United States. As of March 13th, really, I mean, it's been graduated, but as March 13th, we are no longer united. However, we are beginning to unite in a different kind of way. We're beginning to unite in a spirit, theoretically, not all of us, but there is a greater gathering of unification around the tyranny and the mendacious nature of the lockdown. So we've got to bring in the associate producer here. There he is, the man with the plan, the Astro. He has a weak tummy this morning. He did not do so well with his breakfast. Weak little tummy. But he's so dedicated. He's so dedicated to the cause. Weak tummy and all, he's here. He's here to lend his moral support and his superior spiritual guidance to our efforts. Well, I know, but I have to do the show. You have to unhook. Oh, I know. I know. Yeah. Oh, look at that guy. Look at that guy. Who needs a Dalai Lama when you've got Dolly Jasper? Uh, there you go. That's a nice place for you right there. Right there, you got a little cushion and everything. You can be Mr. Spock today. Okay, you be Mr. Spock, and I'll be Kirk. Yeah. Okay. The Astro Cat. There we go. Hey, Ani. Good morning. Good to see you. Jasper he's the man. He's the man. He's one of the most. He's one of the most graced cats I've ever run across. Truly. Let's see. I was born during a blizzard. Were you born in a crossfire hurricane? Blizzard. I like that. That's good. I think the conditions of one's birth actually tell a very interesting story. I think there are interesting stories around births, which kind of get back to astrology in some ways. And everybody has a story with their birth. Everybody does. Some are more complicated, unusual, but there's always conditions and stories around births, which I think are important. They're like the opening chapter of a bigger story, which is your life. What's going on with T. Jordan? Let's see. You guys have a nice little. I pay attention to the College Board. Who's in charge of AP classes? Okay. Yeah, if I was a parent who had a kid in school, I would probably think about an alternative, a serious alternative. You got to get your kids out of public education if you really want them to have a different kind of future, whatever that future theoretically is going to be, because that's always an interesting speculation, isn't it, about what the future holds. And right now, we're going to get into some of that we're going to look at the chart for Nashville, which you saw on the description of the show, and try to catch up on a bunch of things. What I don't want to do today is I don't want to get really stuck in the weeds, because there's so much about this Nashville thing that is just nuts and off the charts, and it's thick. It's really, really thick. I'm going to try to cut through some of it, but there's so much going on there. There's so many layers going on there that I could probably spend the next 2 hours getting into the whole Nashville event. But we'll take a stab at it astrologically. We'll look at a few other things that are going on, which have really gotten my attention, and a lot of it having to do with the vaccine. I'm going to talk a lot about the vaccine today and some of the real, I think, dangers of the vaccine, which are becoming more and more prevalent as they run a trial, because what we're witnessing now is the rollout of the vaccine is the trial. If you weren't being made aware of that, you should be aware of that now, because they really didn't have any trials. They had a few random trials, and some people had some very adverse reactions, and they moved on. They said, okay, well, we'll tweak a few things here or there, and then we'll roll this out, and it will be a live exercise. It'll be a live exercise. We'll take the data, and then we'll begin to adjust the so-called mRNA vaccine so that some of these conditions like Bell's palsy might be attenuated. Yeah, right about that. Okay, let's have a little invocation here, and then we'll jump into the show. Dear blessed Holy Mother, Father God of the Great Central Sun, which is the universal light of Yeshua, Sananda, Emmanuel, we ask that only the highest and best information, truth, wisdom, and knowledge come through this channel for everyone at this time. And we affirm and decree the qualities of grace, compassion, higher mind, intellect, empathy, humor, commitment, flexibility, vision, clarity, strength, flexibility, and above all, love. We ask that any karmic residue be cleansed, clarified, purified, and removed from this stream at this time. So be it. By the way, a big shout out to Judy. Judy, I didn't catch you earlier, but welcome to the show. I think Judy's the green light, by the way. That's what I think. I think Judy is the green light. So anyway, a big universal shout out to Judy. All right, why don't we get into the Nashville chart? I'm just going to jump right into it because had I done last night's show live, this is likely what I would have gotten into. So here we go. This is the chart. It is 6:29 a.m. This is going to be Nashville time. 12:29 Universal. So the thing that really jumps out at me here now. My instincts tell me that the same people that were involved in Nashville, that were involved in the Beirut explosion, and probably likely involved in 9/11, are more than likely involved here. Why do I say that? Well, first of all, what's interesting is that initially, when this thing popped, it said that the explosion had come from Lebanon, Lebanon, Tennessee, and it could be felt as close as Nashville. I'm like, well, that's interesting. Why Lebanon, Tennessee? But then the information came through that it was actually in Nashville. I was like, okay, so now it's in Nashville, but it was originally in Lebanon. But then, what was it, yesterday? They had like a box truck which had shown up in Lebanon, Tennessee, which is outside of Nashville. So eventually Lebanon came into the discussion. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So now we have a link between Lebanon and Lebanon. And of course, we had the massive port explosion in Lebanon and all the various and sundry phenomena that happened before you see the explosion. And there's some of that goes on here in the Nashville explosion. You have the little beam of light. You have the thing that sort of crosses over the horizon like a little orby object. Some of the same stuff happened in Lebanon. And when I have some more time, maybe tomorrow, because I'll work on this tonight, I'll try to do kind of a side-by-side of the Lebanon explosion and the Nashville explosion. In some ways, they're quite similar. So then you have to ask yourself, well, who would be involved in something like this? Well, I think we can look at the 12th house, because the 12th house is hidden. And what do we have here in the 12th house? Well, we have Venus in Sagittarius, right there, bang. We have the South Node also in Sagittarius. So what does Sagittarius represent? It represents distant places, other countries, religion, philosophy, law. So here we have Venus, which is, this is also, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, conjunct, I believe the U.S. ascendant in the Sibley chart is 15 degrees. So that ascendant is going to be the midpoint between the South Node and Venus, which means it's kind of hugging the U.S. ascendant. Now, as the South Node gets closer to the U.S. ascendant in the Sibley chart, I think it's significant. And I believe that is a critical point, a crisis point, and that will be happening in the not so distant future, more than likely by the middle part of January. January 20th, we're going to hit that very critical point with the South Node on the U.S. Sibley ascendant. So this is hidden, cloaked away, and we have Venus in conjunction with Antares. Antares is it's kind of a cousin of Mars, right? Antares and Mars have very similar qualities. They're quite warlike in a lot of ways. Very warlike, very, very martial, very aggressive. So here we have Antares in the 12th house, hidden, Venus conjunct Antares, and then the South Node, and this is an inflicted relationship. Even though the orb is 7 degrees, it's still going to be conjunct. So whoever did this, whoever is responsible for this, is probably not Anthony Q. Warner. I think we could look to Venus and the South Node right here in the 12th house, hidden, cloaked, tucked away, right? And then we have the in conjunct with the moon right here in Taurus, almost exact at 12 degrees. So what does the moon represent in Taurus? Especially in Taurus, it represents security, safety, all those Tauran things. You wake up in the morning, maybe you pour yourself a little Christmas Day, a little eggnog with a shot of brandy or whatever you're doing. You get your little coffee with your eggnog creamer. Oh, it's Christmas Day. It's tradition. You're safe. You're secure. Oh, no, you're not. No, you're not. You have this in conjunct going on here, right? So it's the relationship between what's happening in the 12th house and how it's impacting the moon. And we have Black Moon Lilith also in conjunction with Taurus here. So this is a dark moon. This is a shadowy moon. This is sort of the shadow of the material realm, but it's also the shadow of security and safety. Like, is anybody really safe? Right? Because this is the message here, theoretically. Is anybody really safe? And we also have Uranus, kind of not quite at the midpoint here, but we had the moon cross over Uranus earlier. That was on the 24th. We had the moon-Uranus conjunction, which is fairly explosive. And then I wanted to put Eris up on this chart. I normally don't use Eris, but look where Eris is. It's right here. It's at 23 degrees, conjunct Mars. Mars has just crossed Eris. And we have a 16-degree Aries IC. So this is quite in Nashville now. Remember, this is Nashville. This is quite explosive. Very explosive. And one of the things we talked about was the square between Mars and Pluto, which we addressed, was it last week or the week before? That Mars-Pluto square, yes, there it is, violent and explosive. Bang, right there. Right there. And let's see what else we have here. We have squares between Venus and Neptune. Well, that is deception. That is deception. And with Neptune in the third house, it's going to be very difficult to get a very clear picture as to what's happening locally. And it still is, because I've sorted through hours worth of the video, and there are different qualities of that video that are, well, how shall we say, strange. And I don't want to say intriguing, because that makes it sound like, ooh, if we didn't have to deal with it, I'd be very happy with it. But there are things that are consistent and inconsistent with the video. First of all, there are actual, well, let me say this. There is footage where there is an RV and there is no RV. That's number one. Number two, there is footage where it looks as if there is a flash of light, but the flash of light is not the explosion. Like, there are very weird things going on with this event. Very strange things. Then you have what looks like a completely demolished and gutted, almost post-Tartarian reset landscape, where these buildings are just completely. It almost looks like kind of a World War II scenario where they just hit buildings with mortar shells. It's very strange stuff, and some of it is quite inconsistent. And with Neptune here in the third house, the information is going to be fuzzy, foggy, and let's find the easiest, most patsiest scapegoat, I think. So Anthony Quinn Warner, or Q, warning about Q, which is pretty obvious. That this guy is now the guy that did it. He supposedly had a locksmith business, living in an RV. Again, theoretically, had a real problem with 5G. Supposedly, it was near the AT&T building, all that other bullshit. So we have that story going on. That's part of the so-called narrative. And what's really interesting is I'm gonna get to the Anthony Warner stuff in a bit. Is that supposedly the van was registered to him? Now we don't know that because all we see is just the front end of the van. We don't see the back end. And you would think that the back end would have, well, the front end didn't have any license plate. Did the back end have a license plate? We don't know. There's supposedly this photo of the van near this house. I mean the RV near the. So there's a lot of very sketchy circumstantial evidence. Now, they found the remains of the body. If that explosion was as explosive as it looks to have been, my question is, what remains? Like, what remains? If you look at the blast zone, and the blast zone is as violent as it is. So was the body wrapped up in some kind of mummified lead casing so that when the bomb went off, Anthony Warner would really be quite conscious and aware of his remains being able to be identified? I mean, these are questions that people really aren't asking. Because if you look at that blast field, I'll bring you some pictures tomorrow. If you look at that blast field, it's almost, where's the van? There is, I mean, he would literally be eviscerated into a million microscopic pieces. What are they, scraping his DNA off the wall? Oh, and the DNA test. Okay, so they've run DNA tests. It started on maybe the 26th. And here we are, it's the 28th. And they've run the DNA test. Within 2 days, they know exactly who this guy is. Yeah, I say bullshit. I call bullshit on this. I mean, just think of the forensics involved. People just don't think through things. They don't think through things. And what about, medical, the dental? Well, the teeth. Where are the teeth? Are you going to be going through the rubble field trying to find the teeth with a fine-tooth comb? Oh, look, we found one. Here's a tooth. Well, in order to use that as a piece of forensic evidence, you would have to know who Anthony Quinn Warner's dentist was. And then you'd have to go to them and look at the x-ray records of the teeth and say, oh, yes, these are the teeth. And they would have done that within, 48 hours, 72 max, please. Please, we're talking Patsy. It's bullshit. So they're trying to create a narrative. Obviously, somebody who is disgruntled. He's an older white guy. He was he's a locksmith. The other story here is you're going to have a bunch of people now who are being kicked out of their homes because they can't afford them because of the lockdown. And what are they doing? They're buying vans and they're buying RVs. And you know what else they're doing? They're buying box trucks and they are reconditioning them to be their little mobile home on wheels because humans are adaptable. That's what we are. We are adaptable. So now all of a sudden, if you got an RV sitting somewhere in the city, guess what's going to happen to you? Oh, you're going to be a person of interest, aren't you? See how that works? You have a box truck. Oh, person of interest. Van. Oh, person of interest. You know what that means? That means that they are going to use that to basically lay down a new layer of security. You want to go into a city, you're going to have to go through a checkpoint. This is where this is headed. Now, that has nothing to do with AT&T and the Dominion servers and Cerberus, which theoretically were connected to that place, and Joe Biden's brother-in-law and all that other bullshit. That's a whole other tale of the tape. It doesn't have to do with the Bat Building, which is the twin of the Owl Building in Austin. Nashville and Austin, they're binary. Nashville and Austin are binary, and it's quite easy to see. University of Tennessee, which is not in Nashville, by the way. University of Tennessee what is that? Is it Knoxville? Is it Knoxville? Pretty sure it's in Knoxville. I could be wrong though. I know Tennessee State is in Knoxville, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, University of Tennessee, they have orange. Like that's the color. They're orange. What is the color of University of Texas? Orange. University of Tennessee, what is their symbol or emblem? It's a T. What is University of Texas's symbol? It is a T. They're both orange. They both have T's. Now the Tennessee team is the Volunteers, and here's the Longhorns. That's where it kind of stops. But Nashville was Music City, Austin, Music City, so they're binary, and a lot of people sort of travel between Nashville and Austin, especially if you're in the music business. So they're pretty linked in that way. But it's the Bat Building and the Owl Building. Both cities have them. And when you look at the Bat Building and you begin to kind of untangle that, now we're off into the Batman trilogy territory, and where there is the final Batman movie with Bane, and Bane, of course, interesting, Bane capital. The Bane character, and what Bane does is he takes New York City hostage, and the first thing he does is he wreaks havoc with the financial system. He basically takes control of the market through a computer virus or a bug, and they actually tap into the Wall Street theoretically, even though it's not Wall Street, but it's the Gotham City version of Wall Street. And then there's a major bomb and explosion that plays a significant role in that final Batman movie. And I've done a pretty in-depth analysis of that movie and how there's a great deal of anti-Christian symbolism in that movie. But when you see the Bat Building there, it begins to kind of fold into that narrative. And the Bat Building being connected to AT&T and the communication nodes and networks that are associated with that building. And they've been pretty impacted by whatever happened there. So apparently even now, communication, internet access, etc., is kind of sketchy in the Nashville area. Now, some people believe that they're working on how to do this at a nationwide level, that this would be a precursor event, and the precursor event will be connected to something much larger. So that also happens on the 25th, which is, again, theoretically a Christian holiday, and I don't really believe, I mean, it's a Christian holiday only because they adopted it, not because it actually is a Christian holiday. And so let's get back to the chart here. But there's a lot going on there. There's a lot going on. But what I wanted to focus on was, number one, the outcome, or the proposed outcome, of people that are living in vans, people that are living in RVs, and what kinds of security measures they're going to take when you go in and out of a city. Like, that is going to happen. I guarantee you. And I don't believe this will be the only event. We're going to have more events. And of course, there were other events that took place. There was a shootout at a bowling alley in Illinois. Apparently it was, and I say apparently because I haven't really gone down that rabbit hole, but apparently it was some ex-Green Beret. So here we go. Now we're starting to see these pieces of disaffected so-called Americans who are not happy with the outcome of the election and voting. The demonization of the American, or the demonization of the patriot, is going to be front and center now. That's what's going to happen. So they're going to continue to build a case. in the public's eye. Now, the other thing too is that the Nashville event, and they didn't. The major media kind of held off on that for a while. It was almost as if they were trying to figure out what their narrative was going to be. They were waiting to be told how we're going to deal with this and how we're going to talk about this. Now, some people think that there is also a kind of a firefight going on between the intel agencies. Maybe that it's either NSA versus CIA versus military intel. That's possible. But I just keep looking at this right here. This Venus South Node conjunction, 12th house at the time of the blast, hidden, tucked away, and then the square to the moon. And this is the connection here. This is the broken dotted line, right? This is the unseen connection between these two. And then, of course, we have the debilitated relationship with Neptune. Got a couple Neptune squares going on here. We have the square, Neptune square to Venus. So it is the debilitated relationship. It is a relationship that is codependent, toxic, and enabling right here. And when we get into Sagittarius, we're also trying to discuss the truth, right? Well, guess what? Or at least address the truth. And with Venus have a relationship with the truth, it ain't happening. Not with the square to Neptune. Good luck. Good luck getting any kind of information, through this aspect. It's going to be very hard. It's really like, I don't know, navigating through a swamp. So this is going to be a bit challenging. We also have some squares going on to Chiron. Chiron in Aries, moving direct now. So the Chiron squares are going to be with Mercury and the Sun. So right here, bang, right in the first house, squaring off against Chiron. So this could be the narrative where, the individual, Aries, right? Aries is the individual, the wounded individual, driving, local, the RV squaring off against the Sun and Mercury, which would be in conflict. Sun, Mercury, Capricorn, first house. This is sort of the dominant culture, dominant paradigm, hierarchies. Right here we have Chiron in conflict, right there. But with Neptune, because these things are running parallel, they're not indistinct with one another. With Neptune, we see that this aspect does not necessarily allow us to get all the facts because they are obscured. The facts are obscured. But we also have a Venus trine Chiron here, looks like. Kind of a wide orb. So is this positive? I don't know. It depends. It depends on what you view as positive. I haven't seen anything really positive come out of this. That's my sense. Maybe the positive piece is that people have an understanding about how the information is scrambled with Chiron here and can make up their own minds and their relationship with the truth. I don't know. I mean, to me, that would be the best case scenario around this. Now, a lot of water in the chart. We have Neptune and we have Ceres. So the channel, the open flow of emotion, just in general right now, is going to be not as fluid as we'd like it to be. Now, in a few days, we're going to have, I guess today, right? Maybe, where's the moon today? Is it in late Gemini? We'll have the moon in Cancer. We'll get that full moon coming up here shortly. Let's see, what else do we have? Maybe we're already in the full moon. I'm sorry, I've been paying attention to the lumination cycles. We'll do that. It was pretty bright last night, I have to say. The night sky was fairly bright. We have a lot of squares going on with Saturn and Jupiter. We have Saturn squaring Uranus, kaboom. We have Jupiter squaring Uranus, more kaboom. And then we have Mars. We have that Mars-Saturn square, which we talked about. And then, of course, the Mars-Jupiter square, which makes things bigger. So this is a pretty explosive chart, I'd have to say. Very explosive chart. But I think the tail of the tape is right here with Venus and the South Node hidden, tucked away, right here in the 12th house. You want to know, you want to put the fingerprints on this thing? It's right here. It's not Anthony Quinn Warner. Sorry. Doesn't cut it. Doesn't cut it. Let's do this. I want to look at something. You guys can look at that for a little bit. Let's do this. Cedar fever is upon me. Yikes. All right, what do we got here? Let me look at this. Okay, so we got 12 and 20. There's that weird video, the guy with his dog. Did you see that? So people say that there was a gunfight going on, but then I've also see this is where the information is very skewed. This is the Neptune piece, right? This is the Neptune challenge with that, where the information is quite skewed. Well, there was a gunfight, and then I've also heard that the gunfire was actually part of the recording. So it's very difficult to sort of wrap your arms around this. It's kind of like, in some ways, a Las Vegas styled event. All right, here we go. Let's see, where are we with this thing? 12. All right. Okay. This is interesting. So here is the Sabian symbol. Let's get into the Sabian symbol for Venus. I'm going to show you guys the Sabian symbol for Venus. It's an interesting one. Let's see how we can interpret this thing. So looks like the Sabian symbol of Venus is 12 Sagittarius. Now, when you study the Sabian symbols, you will recognize that flags play a significant role in the various in the unfoldment of the Sabian symbols, the narrative of the Sabian symbols. They show up quite a bit, and I haven't done like a clear map as to how the flags literally unfurl in the same, but there's at least 4 flag symbols in the Sabian symbols, and this is one of them. So a flag turns into an eagle, the eagle into a chanticleer saluting the dawn. So what's interesting is that this event took place at dawn. We know that 6:29 in the morning. It is really sort of the crack of dawn. So what does this mean? So the flag, which is turns into the embodiment, so the embodiment of the flag is the eagle, right? And it has the ability to soar, have this kind of telescopic perception of what's down below. It has vision, the height of vision. It basically follows its own rules, lives by the laws of nature. This is the eagle, right? Especially the bald eagle, which is the symbol of the country. And then it turns into a chanticleer, and a chanticleer is a rooster, which is saluting the dawn, right? So you have the cock-a-doodle-doo. Well, the chanticleer here is a deadly or an explosive salutation. The spiritualization and promotion of great symbols of a new age by minds sensitive to its precursory manifestations. So there is some occult symbology related to what happened in Nashville. Like, it is the dawn of a new day. And what they are essentially telling you is that the dawn of a new day is explosive, and it involves chaos. And out of chaos, there is a new order. Ordo ab chao. So it is a symbol of the explosion of a new dawn, right? This is what we're talking about because it happened at dawn. And there it is, right there. Boom. Boom. There's a boom. But who's behind it? That's the other piece. That's the Sagittarius 12. Venus, 12th house. In the background of this strange allegory, we can recognize the deep-seated belief that the American nation and its basic democratic institutions were constituted to be the cradle for a new step in human evolution. The flag is the abstract symbol of the nation. It becomes an eagle, another U.S. symbol, when the concept is made alive by bold and transcendent action. The eagle symbolizes spiritual will and the power to rise to the highest possible altitude of consciousness and purpose. Flying at such an altitude, the eagle is the first living creature to perceive the rising sun. Having perceived it, it heralds it, and by so doing is identified by the crowing chanticleer, who has convinced himself that his resonant cry was responsible for the rise of the sun and the coming of a new day. This second stage symbol contrasts with the first, that is completely future oriented. It speaks of peak experiences instead of the wisdom found in the organismic depth of the body consciousness. It urges us to bring the noblest ideals to actual life through the power of spiritual will. A key word might be annunciation. So this is what this symbol, which is related to Venus at 12 degrees, theoretically is talking about. But what we're seeing here is we're seeing a dark application of that. Right? We're seeing a dark application with the square to Neptune in that third house, and even with the squares of Chiron in Aries, which is the individual, and then the square to the Sun and Mercury, we're seeing the negative manifestation of that. We're seeing that somebody wants to hold on to an old ideal or an old world of order, and this is not really the case. What they want to do is they want to break the dawn of a new day. And the dawn of the new day is not the dawn of the chanticleer crowing the virtues of so-called democracy and the Constitution and the Republic. Now, that is not the dawn of the new day that they want. And what's also interesting is the bat lurking in the background. There was I believe they did a silver dollar that has the bat on it. Didn't it come out this year? So it's almost as if the bat is supplanting the eagle. And it's a very different creature. Number one, it is a mammal. Well, bird is a mammal too, but it's a weird mammal because it lays eggs. The bird is the hybrid between a reptile and a mammal. I mean, this is what happens. Like reptiles lay eggs, snakes lay eggs, right? They lay eggs. A bird lays an egg, but a bat doesn't lay an egg. A bat actually has, the little biological little batty brood. So it's a significant difference. And bats are nocturnal, and the eagle here obviously is a daytime or bird associated. I'm sure eagles do just well at night, just fine at night, but they're not like owls, which again is a nocturnal animal. And that connects us back to the bat as well. So when we go back to the beginning of the year, what were we dealing with? We're dealing with coronavirus. So we're dealing with this idea that it was a zoonotic virus that went from bat to human, right? So we have these bookends kind of and that's really when it started. The coronavirus started in December of last year. That's when it started to hit. It was starting to hit right after the eclipse that happened, in December of last year, which was on the 25th, right? We had that eclipse on the 24th, 25th that went through Southeast Asia. Here we are a year later, and we have another event, and we have the bat symbol lurking in the background, which is in stark contrast to the Sabian symbol of the eagle. And, what does a bat do? A bat is deceptive, right? A bat is blind. It is flying by a completely different set of navigational principles. It's flying by radar. So it can't see. Meanwhile, the eagle has incredible vision and can see. So there's an element of transmutation here, and that perhaps the new symbol of the new republic will in actuality be a bat. It's a weird undercurrent that has gone through this whole kind of corona narrative. We don't talk about the whole bat to human thing. We don't talk about the wet market much anymore. We also don't talk a whole lot about how bad coronavirus is in China, because quite frankly, it's not bad at all. Look at a few other things here. So let's take a look at the South Node here. Now, the South Node you could actually read as 20 in the Sabian symbols. I'll show you. So 20 would be in an old-fashioned northern village. Men cut the ice of a frozen pond for use during the summer. The four-sided use of natural resources to apply future needs. Okay, that's interesting. I think 19 Sag is even more interesting. Now, Rudyard talks about how these symbols operate in like a trinity. So you can make a case for 20 Sag also being connected to 19 Sag and then moving towards 21 Sag right there. Okay, so they usually work in these trinities or these trinomic kind of cycles. So let's look at 19 for just a second. Pelicans menaced by the behavior and refuse of men seek safer areas for their young, for bringing up their young. This is interesting. The need for people concerned with the future to discover a new way of living in more wholesome surroundings. This gets into this idea of a guy theoretically living in an RV, or people looking around the city or looking around even their country and saying, this is kind of fucked up. We got to find a new place to live or a new way of living. The evident reason for using pelicans at this stage of the cyclic process is that tradition tells us these birds are so concerned with their young that they give their own blood and flesh to feed their progeny, which I always thought was really interesting. Like the little pelicans will peck into their mother's chest and feed off of the blood of their mothers. Whether this is fact or symbol, the meaning of this picture refers to a situation that lately has acquired great urgency. Our technological society is polluting not only our global environment, but the mind and feeling responses of new generations as well. The search for a new way of life is seen by many people to be imperative. In this fourth symbol of the 50-second sequence, we are told that the race's survival has become a matter of extreme importance. Whole animal species may be destroyed by our civilization. Mankind itself is in danger. Going to distant planets is hardly the answer. A generation may have to sacrifice itself for the sake of its descendants. This is quite interesting. And we see this symbol here at 19, moving to 20. In an old-fashioned northern village, men cut the ice of a frozen pond for use during the summer. So they're going to cut the ice out. They're going to somehow freeze the ice, keep it frozen. So in the summertime, they'll be able to avail themselves of maybe they'll put it in a cave. Who knows? Maybe they've got refrigerators. But to me, this is fascinating. Now, when we go back to the chart, which I'll show you again, we'll see that the South Node is in the debilitated position, because that's what the South Node is. It's right there, right? So it's weak, it's vulnerable. So this idea that people are looking or searching for a new way of life, something that's more wholesome, like that is in a very vulnerable position. And it's even in square with Neptune as well. So this idea, the RV and the guy who supposedly had a hard-on for 5G, who knows? But I do believe that it does connect to this idea that we are searching for safer ground, especially now in the light of whatever happened with this event, which I think is connected to Venus here and the perpetrators who clearly were not on the scene. Let me look at one other thing here really quickly, because I know you guys are probably thinking about this. So I wanted to look at what Gemini 19 and 20 are talking about, or because that's in the sixth house, which is everyday kinds of occurrences, right? Like, distribution, health, kind of dharmic responsibilities. So we have 20 Gemini, which is a modern cafeteria, displays an abundance of food products of various regions. This is about waste. This is about having too much, right? This is an overabundance of a certain thing. This is what Rudyard is talking about here. And then at 19 Gemini, a large archaic volume reveals a traditional wisdom, which is contacting the all-human planetary mind, underlying culture and personal mentality. This is interesting. This is where he really gets into Blavatsky and talks about seed knowledge. Why don't I just play that? Why don't I bring that up for you guys to look at? That's kind of an interesting symbol. So Gemini 19, and that's going to be opposite the other Gemini 19, which has to do with the pelicans looking for a new home. A large archaic volume reveals a traditional wisdom, contacting the all-human planetary mind, underlying any cultural and personal mentality. The cult tradition tells us that all cyclic manifestations of the human mind have had a primordial revelatory source. It speaks of ancient books made of especially treated papyrus leaves and conveying through symbols the archetypal processes at the root of all earthly existence. See Blavatsky's Secret Doctrine. Such volumes, said to remain in the possession of certain adepts, constitute the exteriorization of archetypal knowledge and wisdom. They contain the seed ideas from which the human mind grows, cyclically producing cultures of various types. That's about root races. This fourth stage symbol evokes for us a technique by means of which the human mind can uncover the foundations of its nature and acquire what might be called seed knowledge, the knowledge of the structure of cyclic and cosmic manifestations on this planet. Interesting. Because that's really where the true node is headed. It's headed towards 19, right? Because the nodes are working in a different direction. And then it's going to go to 18. Two Chinese men converse in their native tongue in an American city. Oh, isn't that interesting? That's the next phase here. Look at that. The need for the mind to retain its independence from its physical environment in order to concentrate on its special problems. Very interesting. In a sense, they live in a world, the world of ordinary men, still bound to common earthly biological pursuits, but are not of the world. That's a rabbit hole. I'm not ready to get into that right now. Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. I'll try to do some more tomorrow because I know a lot of you guys have maybe about an hour, maybe an hour 20 at the most to stay here and be a part of this experience. But clearly, to me, it looks like, number one, that there was foreign involvement in that explosion. That's number one, foreign involvement. Number two, that the scenario they've painted is of the, it's another Oswald. It's another Oswald. It's a Ted Kaczynski that's the scenario. Number three, that it's going to have an impact on, I think it's going to have an impact on travel, moving around, people being dispossessed, living in RVs, living in vans. It could also institute checkpoints in cities. Some cities, they might actually decide that they're going to, maybe, I wouldn't say quarantine. Now, what's also interesting is that there's a lot going on with the vaccines, and not in a good way. There have been 2 incidents now in Tennessee. Number one, if I'm not mistaken, that's where Tiffany Dover took her vaccine. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was Nashville. You correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that was Nashville. I could be wrong on this. And then I played another woman. I put the video on Facebook. This African-American black nurse who just was in tears. She took the vaccine, her face dropped into palsy, which gets into another episode of the Batman trilogy, where we have Two-Face, who has his face, which is one is a regular face, the other where the grin drops, where the face drops into a downward. It's not a grin; it's a frown. Harvey Dent. There's a lot of really strange Batman symbolism coming up here with this, but now we have people that are starting to look at, well, Jesus, this vaccine is not safe at all. It's not safe at all. Well, what's less safe? Well, how about driving around your city? That's less safe. You see how these things happen? Just when we get momentum around something, something else happens. Oh, we're jerked. And there's always layers, right? Whenever these things happen, there are layers of the, how do I say this? Not just the symbol of the event, but there are layers to how the event unfolds and the different areas and different touch points that can be used. So it could be about Dominion and the servers and Cerberus, right? Theoretically, there were maybe thousands and thousands of ballots inside of that van, RV, who knows? Why would they need to do that? I don't know. Why couldn't they just take them out to the countryside and just burn them? Seems like it's a long way to go to do that. So there's a lot of things that can be attributed, used, triggered in an event. It's not just one thing. It's not just one thing. But what is a big thing around this is the fact that all of a sudden people are thinking about explosions, RVs, vans, the wing nuts who think that the election was stolen. What are we not talking about? We're not talking about the vaccine. We're not talking about just how deadly this vaccine is. So let me show you just a few of these pieces around the vaccine. I'm just going to run through some headlines here because this is important. Hospital workers turn down COVID vaccine. There's too much mistrust. This is on the 23rd, 2 days before the big boom boom. Less than a week after we reported on widespread resistance among healthcare workers in one Chicago hospital, Becker's Hospital Review.com's Isla Ellison reports the virus and vaccine mistrust is spreading. Many employees at Howard University Hospital in Washington, D.C. have reservations about taking the COVID-19 vaccine. CEO Nita Jenkins is trying to get workers to follow her lead by getting vaccinated. There is a high level of mistrust, and I get it. People are generally afraid of the vaccine. The vaccination numbers, though low, still exceeded expectations, blah, 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 blah. Ms. Jenkins received a shot December 15th in hopes of inspiring staff to get vaccinated. She's part of a widespread effort by healthcare experts and community leaders to combat vaccine hesitancy among Black Americans. About 35% of Black Americans said they probably or definitely would not get the vaccine. It was determined to be safe by the scientists, and widely available for free, according to Kaiser Family Foundation. At Doctors Hospital, Renaissance in Edinburgh, Texas, so many workers declined the COVID-19 vaccine that the hospital offered doses to other medical workers in the region. It's like they got to use the vaccine. Do they get paid by the shot, or do they get just paid by the vaccine? I think they get paid by the shot. In short, we noted previously, nobody wants to be a guinea pig. Look, if you are so-called Black and African American, I would be very concerned. Like, people in general need to be concerned, but I'd be very concerned. Number one, all you got to do is go back and look at Planned Parenthood. Okay, Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, the connections to Bill Gates. What did Melvin Gates say? Oh, we plan on bringing the vaccine to the black community first because they need it the most. And Bill Gates' father was on the board of Planned Parenthood in Seattle, big supporters of Planned Parenthood, might even known Margaret Sanger or had connections to Margaret Sanger. So if you're so-called Black and African American, if I were you, I would be doing a fast 180 away. And anybody I would. Anybody. But they're really invested. Oh, we got to make sure that Black America feels like this vaccine is really safe. Oh, really? Well, what did they do in Tuskegee? Well, guess what they did in Tuskegee? Wasn't Tuskegee. Where was it? It was, I'm thinking of Tuskegee Airmen. My bad. Let me just get this. I got to get this right. It is Tuskegee. You guys don't know about this. I'll show it to you right here. Hold on. Let me show you this. So the CDC is going to, they did this thing called the Tuskegee Syphilis Study. Okay. Here we go. This is exactly what I'm talking about right here. This is exactly what I'm talking about right here. Because what happened was they were actually injected with syphilis. Some African Americans who are taking the vaccine after the 40-year Public Health Service syphilis study at Tuskegee. As the nation is one step closer to getting the COVID-19 vaccine, the next concern will be whether or not people will take it. Okay. So let's look at this here. Dr. Kimberly Carr, who works as a community resource specialist at the Georgia Rural Health Innovation Center, said some of the African American community have been skeptical of the vaccine. This follows decades of mistrust between the community and those in healthcare. I would hope there will be increased participation among everyone, but I also understand that when you talk about vaccinations and public trust, the first thing you think about is the syphilis study. She's referring to the 1932 Public Health Service syphilis study at Tuskegee, where 600 black men were observed with the goal to see the effect of untreated syphilis on the population. Those involved were not aware of the experiment, and many of them did not receive treatment at all. Of the 600 men, 399 had syphilis, 201 did not. Carr's great-grandfather, John Good, was one of the 399. He was part of the group, but he began to shrink because of the stigma of the disease. My grandmother took care of him all the way until he passed. There was no informed consent. The scientists did not even keep record of who got syphilis. They only cared about the bodies of those men. Those men were more valuable dead than they were alive, and you wonder why there is mistrust in the black community. And that's not the only reason why. There are many reasons why that it theoretically should have a high level of mistrust, right? So this is why this woman is trying to make sure, let's get it out there. Let's make sure that it's okay. Let's make sure it's safe. Let's convince these people. Tiffany Dover. Still no signs of life from Tiffany Dover. She's still MIA, missing in action. Let me go to, see if I can find this. Let me do this. Let me go to my Facebook page. So I wonder if I have this piece of content still up. Why is this? Oh. Okay, so let me go to my Facebook page because I know the video is there. It's on BitChute. Make sure I have some volume on this. Okay, if you haven't seen this, take a look at this. This is another woman, a nurse, vaccinated. This is in Nashville, Tennessee. Okay, think about that now. She's from Nashville, Tennessee. Now, what happened when people were fed up with the lockdowns? What were they doing? They were starting to organize. They were starting to go to state capitals. And then, boom, what did we have? We had George Floyd. With the George Floyd event, and that was like, let's throw gasoline on that. Let's light a match. And let's set the inner cities on fire. And let's pump the brakes on people going to capitals and actually organizing and protesting the lockdowns. Now, here we have the fact that here's a nurse in Nashville who's received the vaccine, and coincidentally, we have an explosion. Now, I'm not saying that the explosion is a direct correlation with this event, but it's interesting, right? Synchronistically, it's interesting. So here we go. Hold on. I got to make sure you get the volume on this thing. I get a little too excited sometimes when it comes to actually sharing the information. All right, here we go. All right.
Hi, I am a registered nurse in Nashville, Tennessee, and my name is Kalila Mitchell. I'm reaching out to everyone about the COVID-19 vaccination. I recently took the COVID-19 vaccination. After the shot, I felt fine, but within 3 days, I went to the doctor because I had problems with my face. The whole left side of my face, actually. I have Bell palsy now. And as you can see, I can't smile. I'm trying to smile. I'm just kind of embarrassed for it. But I just want everyone to know that I think this vaccination is the worst thing ever. And I would not give this to anybody, even my worst enemy. Please, America, they do not care about us. Do not take this vaccination.
Okay, so do you guys think that's legit? Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. I have to go into the void here. Give me 1 second because I can't get to the comments. I want to see your comments. Do you guys think that's legit? We got yes, 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 yes. Yeah, she seems very upset for real. That's legit. Okay, we got Foxborough says, I don't know. I don't know. Yes, it is heartbreaking. Yes. The AT&T building in Tennessee is an owl. They call it the Bat Building. That's what I've heard. Could be an owl. They both go by night, right? So do you think she's legit? Foster says, I'm anti-vax, but can't tell. Legit or not, good advice in my opinion. Chris says, Fox seems real. Question is, why Bell's palsy? Chickenpox in the vax. Yes, Bell's palsy is known potential side effect. Okay. So I've seen a few other pictures. We've called it the Bat Building since the 90s. Yeah, I think it's the 90s. I think it's the Bat Building, right? So if that's the case, then this woman is from Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee. And if I'm not mistaken, that's also where Tiffany Dover I could be wrong here, but I think Tiffany Dover was from Nashville as well. And what do we have? We have the blast going off in Nashville. So there's a lot happening right now. Um, here we go again. More vaccine news, because this is kind of what I want to talk about. It's sort of related here. Major COVID vaccine glitch emerges. Most Europeans, including hospital staff, refuse to take it. All is not going according to plan, and the biggest global rollout is arguably the most important vaccine in a century, and is not just growing U.S. mistrust in the COVID injection effort that was rolled out in record time, an unexpected spike in allergic reactions to Pfizer BioNTech vaccine, and now Moderna too. Hold on. What is this? I'm getting some. Hold on. I'm getting some feedback on this, which I don't want. Well, the European Union has secured contracts. Drug makers include Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca for a total of more than 2 billion doses. They set a goal for all adults to be inoculated next year. This is looking increasingly like a pipe dream. I mean, literally, they're going to have to force people to take the damn shot. The way this thing is going, the way it's being rolled out, they're going to have to force people to take the shot. And I think it's going to be problematic. It already is problematic. They're either going to have to force them or coerce them through economic measures, or literally just strap them down and just inject them. Or the third option would be to trick them into getting the vaccine, which can happen. But the idea here is that you have to have consent. In order for the devil to have its due, you have to consent to the devil. That's a big piece here. There's so much to talk about. This is so much to talk about here. There's another. I'm going to bring this up. This is from Twitter, and this is another vaccine issue and a nurse. I'm just going to keep hitting you with this stuff. So blanky blank asked a question in Directors of Nursing. I'm having a moral dilemma. And could use some advice. We had our COVID vaccination clinic yesterday, a resident that received the vaccine coded and died within 12 hours. While it is probably coincidental, I still feel this should be reported to VAERS. Now, some of you in Chatlandia may know what VAERS is. I don't. I am being directed not to report by corporate. I'm leaning to report regardless. What would you do? I'd already put in my notice, but I contemplate not working out the full 30 days. Well, if I were you, I would report it, whatever that is, whatever VAERS is. You guys know what VAERS is? Probably at least. There was a poll about employers to be allowed to force vaccines. 59% said absolutely. Yes. Vaccine reverse reporting system. Thanks, Steve. So that's what VAERS stands for. They're capable of releasing all sorts of experimental things and then blaming any effects on new virus. Yes, that's true. Absolutely true. Especially people that are vaccinated. The vaccine could produce the adverse effects. So here we are. We haven't even talked about Trump. We haven't talked about January 6th. We haven't talked about January 20th. The world is turning on Trump. We're getting to the scenario of, and then you got this clown. Sorry. Continuity sake, I can't go there. Now the New York Post is turning on Trump. And Trump's pardons are getting more and more, how do I say this? Self-serving. So Trump now just pardoned another Kushner pal. Before I go to this thing, I want to show you some of the damage of the Nashville bomb. Let me just show you some of this. I know continuity-wise it's a little out of sync, but I want to show you this. All right, so this is what happened. I mean, look at this shit. Look at this. Do you think a propane bomb inside of an RV did this? No. Look at this. And where's the guy's DNA? Where's the guy's DNA? Look at this thing. This shit has been cratered. This is some I think direct energy. If there's a thing that happened here, it was a direct energy weapon. That's my take. But where are they going to find the guy's remains? I mean, that's just ridiculous. Oh, hey, look, I think we've got some over here. Let's scrape it off. Like, they're really going to be able to use his DNA. I mean, do they think we're fucking stupid? Do they think we're fucking stupid? That they're going to somehow get his DNA remains? That's ridiculous. It looks just like what happened in Lebanon or Beirut. Victoria V says, several of my nurse friends who received the vax have had a reaction of just like COVID symptoms: fever, worst headache they ever had, overwhelming fatigue. And they're supposed to go in the front lines and help. Right. Yes, absolutely. There's a video now showing the RV was not the actual point. That's right. It was across the street from it. I think it was a dew. It looks like a freaking dew blast. And you tell me where they're going to get the genetic remains from the guy in the RV. Please tell me that. Where are they going to find it? Where are they going to find it? Where are they going to find the remains? Supposedly, they found a piece of metal with the VIN number. Okay, so it doesn't mean that, they could have stolen the van. There's a lot of different things they could have done, supposedly. Did they find it? Did they find his driver's license 200 feet away as well? This is an interesting comment. A truck in Long Island last week had 300 propane tanks on it, and they blew up and burned next to an apartment building. The building is fine. Should have been worse in Nashville. Yes. Agreed. Yes. Shootout before. I don't know about the shootout. They said there was a shootout, but I've heard that the gunfire was actually on the recording. That's what I've heard. Again, what do we have? We've got, we have Neptune in the third house, which is local communication, squaring Venus, our relationship to facts and truth. The real causality is linked to 5G, unfounded conspiracy theories. Well, there we go. That's part of it too. They'll just attach whatever they want to attach. So let me show you this. This is where I think Trump is doing everything in his power to get Chabad on his side. Trump pardons king of Medicare fraud who looted $1.3 billion and donated to Kushner-favored Chabad Lubavitch. You guys know that when it comes to Trump, I'll get into the good, I'll get into the bad. And the pardons have been, well, let's just say the pardons have been, I think, strategic on Trump's part. I'm not in agreement with the pardons. I'm saying they're strategic. So here we go. On Wednesday, he pardoned a host of fraudsters who donated to the Aleph Institute, an organization that was started by Orthodox Jewish Chabad Lubavitch movement, which counts the president's son-in-law and also his daughter, Jared Kushner, as a member. Though Trump has yet to find time to pardon Julian Assange or Edward Snowden. I'm not into either of those pardons, by the way. I don't think it matters. I'm not going to spend a show telling you why. Maybe I'll get into tomorrow. The king of Medicare fraud, Chabad Lubavitch donor, Philip S. Formas. And Coulter chimes in, President Kushner's pardon of the day. President Kushner's part of the day. Philip S. Formas ripped off Medicare U for $1.3 billion to pay for escorts, $1 million+ Ferrari, and a bribe to get his son into the University of Pennsylvania. So I guess that's why they let Lori Loughlin go, right? I mean, isn't that kind of an occult thing? We're going to let this guy go, but we'll take Lori Loughlin. We'll get her out of the ice chamber. Who knows? But he donated to Chabad Lubavitch, favored by Jared Kushner. This is Ann Coulter now talking about this. Jesse Drucker, exclusive from @Ken Vogel and @Eric Lipton NYT. How a convicted Medicare fraudster got sprung from prison by Trump after his dad donated to a group with ties to Jared Kushner, blah, blah, blah. There's Eric Lipton, right? Eric S. Formes. So these are pardons that I think that are coming out of the Kushner camp and the Trump camp, by the way. Mr. Formes' family donated $65,000 to the group, the Aleph Institute, over several years, starting after his indictment court of the group. His family adorns a school in Chicago associated with Chabad Lubavitch, group of Hasidic Jews, whose leader at the time was involved in the creation of the Aleph Institute. In the early 1980s, his father is a rabbi in Florida. His family also donated for years to the Chabad Lubavitch movement, to which Mr. Kushner has longtime ties. Philip S. Formas' father, Rabbi Morris S. Formas, is a huge supporter of Chabad. Alan Dershowitz, a longtime supporter of clemency, who works with the Aleph Institute on a volunteer basis, said the group played a significant role in Mr. Formas' clemency effort, put together the papers for the petition. Alan Dershowitz should be banned from any mainstream media opportunities for the rest of his life. He should be shunned. Absolutely shunned. So there you go. Now, why is Trump doing this? Why is he doing this? Well, he's doing it because of the Kushner connection. That's number one. But number two, I think Trump is doing this for political gain and political allies for one of two reasons. One, to stay in office, because Chabad Lubavitch is really powerful. They are very powerful, extremely powerful. And Trump is leaning on, I think, the one power base that he still can tap into through his son-in-law, his father-in-law, whom he pardoned, by the way, so that he can use their financial and informational support, because Chabad Lubavitch has a lot of information on people. And they could work assiduously behind the scenes for Donald Trump in his attempt to remain president of the United States. Although he doesn't really need that. All he needs to do is have Sidney Powell be able to make a case to the American public through Trump on a consistent basis, vis-a-vis a series of fireside chats that Trump could do every single night to present his case to the American public. And if the mainstream media doesn't want to play nice with Trump, he's still president, he can revoke their FCC licenses. That's all he needs to do. But apparently he's going to lean on, because they all lean on their networks, right? They're all connected. They've got all these different people, who have their crime syndicate, their family crime syndicates. The Bush crime syndicate family, the Clinton crime syndicate family, the Rothschild crime syndicate family, the Rockefeller crime syndicate family, the Chabad crime syndicate family. They're all there. This is how the game works. And so I think Trump is doing his best through Jared to curry political and intelligence favor. This is what I think is happening. Doesn't look good. Certainly doesn't look good. Now, as far as Assange and Snowden being pardoned, I don't know. Snowden is, he's CIA. He's got CIA roots. He was, basically, involved in exposing the NSA, and I don't know. I don't think Snowden deserves a pardon. And Assange is interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong, but was Assange ever charged with treason? And wouldn't Assange have to be a citizen of the United States to commit treason? I don't know the international law around this, but one would think that that would be the case. And I'm not sure that's really the case. If he is who is Assange even a citizen of? England? Australia? He was at the time in the Ecuadorian consulate. Was he a citizen of Ecuador? So where was Assange's roots at the time? And by the way, Assange created a platform for information to be funneled through. Now, I guess he could hit yes or no or stop or go, right? And what we're talking about here isn't really what happened when Obama was president. It happened in October of 2016 when the big WikiLeaks dump came through. And it came through WikiLeaks. Did Assange do it? Did he do it? Did he create the dump? I don't think so. Did he actively go out and collect the material that came through the DNC? I don't think so. Who did that? Well, there were three parties that I think were responsible for that. One was Roger Stone. I believe Roger Stone was connected to that. Roger Stone did have a connection, and he probably did have a connection with Julian Assange. The other was Seth Rich, whom I think was an operative placed inside the DNC. I don't believe Seth Rich is dead. I think Seth Rich is still alive. And the third one is Guccifer One, who was the person who facilitated the transfer. These are three people that I believe are the ones that were engaged in whatever happened with the dump, the big October surprise. Now, Julian Assange may have okayed it. But even if he okayed it, even if he hit a few little clicks on his screen, said thumbs up, and allowed them to go into the WikiLeaks vault, which, by the way, is an invention of the Central Intelligence Agency, probably. Right? WikiLeaks just didn't grow on its own. By the way, both Snowden and Assange are 9/11 deniers. They think that 9/11 worked the way that everybody said it did. And if they were real truth revelators, if they were real whistleblowers, 9/11 would have been the first thing that they would have gone after. But they never go after it. They always poo-poo it. So to me, that tells you kind of where they are with everything. That's where they are with everything. So why should Trump pardon Julian Assange? Was he formally charged with treason? And wouldn't he have to be a resident of the United States to be capable of treason? Now, he could offer Julian Assange asylum. That's different. He could offer him asylum. But pardoning Julian Assange, help me out here. What did Julian Assange do? He's not a resident of the United States. Theoretically. That'd be like me doing a crime against Russia. Would Russia blame me of being treasonous towards Russia? I don't even live in Russia. Paula says, I think if Trump does not survive the election fraud, his family would be killed, taken down financially in a few years. I think he's Aussie. Well, we think he's Aussie because he grew up in that weird family in Australia. But I don't know what Julian Assange's citizenship is. Trump, we're playing out three revolutionary cycles right now. We're playing out the American Revolution cycle, we're playing out the French Revolution cycle, and we're playing out the Bolshevik Revolution cycle. The Trumps are the new Romanovs. They're the new Romanovs, which is what Paula is talking about. They're the new Romanovs. Now, I'm going to talk about this, I think, tomorrow, because I'm running out of time here today. I want to get going because you guys, the views drop off after about an hour and a half. But one of the things that's important about the Bolshevik Revolution is the transitional government. inside of the Bolshevik Revolution. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. We'll talk about Kerensky. We'll talk about the role of the provisional transitional government and how it theoretically relates to the Biden-Harris government. I'll get into that tomorrow. It's an important correlation. We're in the French Revolutionary cycle. Trump plays a role with that. Remember, Al Gore on Trump's midheaven, kaput, right? The guillotines. The guillotines. We talked about this before. We covered it before on a Sunday night show. We're in the American Revolutionary cycle with Pluto approaching 26 Capricorn, where it was at the start of the American Revolution, so-called American Revolution. And then the third revolutionary cycle is the Bolshevik Revolutionary cycle. Why? Because we're in the 100-year anniversary. Well, it started in 2017, which is when Trump was inaugurated. That's where we are. So to your point, Paula, yes, the Trumps are the new Romanovs. They're also the new Louis and Marie Antoinette. The problem with revolutions is that they indicate revolving. Exactly. Revolution is a cycle. It's the merry-go-round, right? It is the merry-go-round. And you just go in circles. And you grab the ring, which is another circle. You grab for the brass ring. As you go by, you hope to throw it into the clown's mouth. You get a little ding, 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 ding. So it's like a little Pavlovian thing, right? Yes, you're absolutely right. Who cares how many drop off? Keep dropping the truth bomb, baby. Well, I just know that people need to go. So why don't we end there? Because there's a lot going on. There's a lot happening. Even on local level. I'll tell you more about what's happening locally tomorrow. So I'm going to get on out of here. I got a lot of emails to answer. I got breakfast to feed the old gal who's still here. And then there he is. Your sentinel right there. Right there. He's the sentinel. He's watching the Cardinal channel. The Cardinals aren't here yet this morning. He's looking for him. All right. Use your head in order to discern what's real. Your heart said what's possible. I want to shout out John Levi for his latest episode. You want to check it out. One of the things he talks about at the beginning of the episode, which I think is important and something that I've talked about for a while, is Michael Hoffman, who I think I'd like to have on the show at some point. He's an interesting character. And Michael Hoffman talks about the revelation of the method a lot. And one of the things that John talked about, which I also agree with, is that, and I've talked about this before, is that the idea of us, sort of being quote unquote truthers or trying to find the truth or uncover the truth, is that when we do that, we are completing an esoteric circuit and we're actually being engaged and indoctrinated in a type of esoteric doctrine, which is being initiated. So by doing this, we're all theoretically becoming initiates into an esoteric doctrine, which I don't really care about so much. I mean, but it's an interesting thing to think about, right? And once you're able to name it, you can see it from a different perspective, which we just did. But check out John's latest video. All right. Use your head in order to discern what's real. Your heart to say what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Thank you for being here. I'll be back tomorrow. Take good care of yourself. Bye for now.